are now the Liberal candidate for the Lethbridge riding ahead of the federal election. What's the honor mean for you?
Well, I'm delighted to have the opportunity to serve the city of Lethbridge again. I think I had quite a successful term as mayor in terms of we had over $1 billion of new investment while I was mayor. We had the lowest tax increases in many years. 2019, the lowest in 20 years, followed by 3 years of 0% tax increases. So I can demonstrate fiscal responsibility. The landing of the Cavendish project, the expansion of the Richardson Oilseeds building, the expansion at Pepsi, Frito-Lay, all wonderful private economic development projects. We successfully got federal funding for the Nikiyuko Japanese Gardens Bunka Center. We got federal funding for the downtown bus terminal, federal funding for the downtown Yates Theatre, federal funding for the Lethbridge Airport. So I was successful in negotiating with people like Federal Minister of the Prairies, Jim Carr, and Amarjeet Sohi, the Minister of Infrastructure. So I have some experience engaging with federal politicians, which ultimately benefited Lethbridge taxpayers in terms of getting things done at minimal cost to local taxpayers. So I think that's one portion. I think it was socially progressive. I was actively involved with the Reconciliation Advisory Committee. I fully supported their recommendation to make the word Oki the official greeting for the city of Lethbridge. And I certainly listened to Indigenous people and their perspectives when we were making important decisions that affected them. And I would expect to continue to do so as the MP for this area. So I look forward to having a strong voice for Lethbridge. I think we haven't had a strong voice in Lethbridge, to be honest, for the last 10 years. Whenever we announced and completed any of those projects that I'd mentioned, our MP would show up to those openings when a project was complete, but she'd never had any involvement with the actual acquisition of funds or never advocated for the projects in the development. So I see some similarity there with the CPC leader, Pierre Poilievre, almost 20 years experience and 0 accomplishments, and our MP has 10 years service and 0 accomplishments. So I think Lethbridge deserves a stronger voice in Parliament, and that's what I would seek to do.
And what's it like, the importance of having a strong voice that comes out of Lethbridge and bringing that voice, that Southern Alberta, those issues from Southern Alberta and Lethbridge to bring to the federal level?
Well, I think as many people in Lethbridge know that we're often forgotten. In Alberta, people think about Edmonton and Calgary and almost nothing else, and definitely down in the south. I think I have an established record of speaking for Lethbridge and speaking up for Lethbridge, and I would do that in Parliament. And I hope by the time I'm finished my term, when people think about Alberta, they think about Calgary, Lethbridge, and Edmonton.
And you already talked about the experience that you are bringing from your history as mayor and other work that you've done locally here that you would bring to Ottawa. So what are some of those key issues and those interests that you are fighting for that you are bringing federally that maybe some people outside of Alberta are not aware that these are the kind of issues that we need to deal with the most?
Well, I think I've been vocal on the coal issue. I think it's important to protect the agri-food industry that we've built up over many decades and many people employed in that. We need to have clean, fresh water. I've been involved in economic development in this city for over 40 years. When I was working in the agri-food sector in the city, and when I formed organizations like the Industrial Association of Southern Alberta and was an active initial member of Economic Development Lethbridge, and served as the vice chair for 8 years while I was the mayor of Lethbridge. So I have that. I also have involvement in social issues and social organizations in the city of Lethbridge. So I served on the board of the Rehabilitation Society of Southern Alberta. It's now called Opportunity Lethbridge, but basically providing opportunities for people with developmental disabilities. And also I served on the Indigenous or the Aboriginal Housing Society prior to becoming mayor. I was involved in my church and was helpful in generating the money to initially build the church. And I think there's many experiences that I have both socially from the business sector and politically, which would be an asset if I was the Member of Parliament for Lethbridge.
Studies have shown out about key issues that Canadians are wanting to see that prioritize, including, I guess, number one being the tariff response coming from America. Others include economy, others include housing, others include that kind of stuff. So what is sort of your angle on like the top priority you feel that needs to be addressed in this nation right now?
I think we need a leader of a political party and a prime minister who fully understands the economy, who has had the experience in dealing with international finances. I think that we get that with Mark Carney. I think he can demonstrate his past experience both in Canada and internationally in dealing with those types of issues. He's quickly dealt with concerns that were raised about him and basically put his assets into blind trusts, and he's moved on. We've seen when issues were raised about Pierre Poilievre, he's unable to dispense with them. The fact that he doesn't have a security clearance after 3 years certainly is a major holdback, and that would be a risk to our allies. If we're forming relationships with other countries, we need a prime minister they can trust. And I think that's the first issue. When it comes to resolving those trades, we need someone who will stand up to Donald Trump and has the background and experience to be credible. When it comes to promoting markets for Canadian products, we need somebody with international experience. When it comes to housing, we really need to engage with Canadians so that what we've been doing for a long time is not working. We need to make sure that we're providing housing. Housing, it creates opportunity for people to get employment and for immigrants who come into the country. Immigration's been an issue. We've been bringing in too many immigrants for the housing that's available, putting pressure on what we have. We have to temper and manage immigration and housing simultaneously. So we need to make sure that we're governing in a coordinated way, in a way that meets the challenges that Canadians have identified.
Alberta, of course, they're going to show up this federal election with a very conservative, they're going to show up with a lot of conservative votes and voices. Here in Lethbridge, there seems to be a bit of a mix more than anywhere else that we see across Alberta, say even in Calgary and Edmonton. Mm-hmm. Those voters who are sort of like kind of on the fence of either side, or sort of like debating between their options, why should they put their confidence in you?
Well, I have a proven record of elected public service. I think that counts for a lot. I hope that people take that into account and recognize that I tried to build up investment in this city and also make the city more affordable by controlling tax increases and the impact that the city had on them. I think that's one aspect of what I can offer, and certainly I've got boundless energy. I've got endless experience in a variety of sectors in the city. I think I know the city well. I've lived here for over 40 years, since 1981, and been involved in multiple organizations in this city. My door's always open. I've always been honest. When I was mayor, I always answered questions. I think one of the issues today is that elected politicians don't be honest. They're not honest with the public, and they're not honest with the press. When an elected politician says they won't answer questions, or they'll limit questions, or they won't allow the press on their media plane for this election, when they're not available and not accountable, that's a big problem for an elected public representative. So I think I've always demonstrated that when I held media conferences when I was mayor, I would stay until the last question was answered, even if it took half an hour or 45 minutes. I've never been one to shy away from questions. I've always tried to be as honest as I possibly could, give the best information I possibly could, and try to make sure that I was serving all citizens of Lethbridge.
Mm-hmm. And regarding your potential opponents that we'll be seeing in Lethbridge, we expect Rachel Thomas rerunning. We have a confirmed running for PPC. What are the qualities in the opponents that you're facing that you think is distinct? I know I've already asked you about the issues you face, but what's so distinctive about the issues that you're fighting for Lethbridge, and then their what they're fighting for?
Well, I think we're going to see a lot of party line. I can't really speak for them. I know people tell me that they're frustrated with the current Conservative Member of Parliament. Every month, she issues a newsletter which has bashed Justin Trudeau and the Liberal governments. But she never says what she's done, what she's contributed to the community. And I think the important thing is, if you're elected, it doesn't matter what party you're from, you have to reach across the aisle, you have to do the best you can to represent your constituency and do the best you can for your community. I'm confident that the Liberals are going to win this election, but in the event that they don't, and if I'm elected, I would work with the government in charge to make sure that they know about Lethbridge, and Lethbridge is as well served as it could be.
The next steps for your campaign. What do you plan to do in the next 5 weeks, and what can we be looking forward to?
Well, we've got to develop a 35-day campaign. I guess it's down to 34 days now, but we want to be available to the people. We want to put up signs. We want to run a competitive campaign that people will be proud of, and make it as competitive as possible. We fully understand that 40% of the voting public has in the past voted Conservative. That's a big challenge for us. And we need to make sure that we offer an alternative that's attractive to all parties, to people who are Conservatives, who might be considered progressive people. We need to offer something that might be attractive to traditional NDP supporters, traditional environmentalists, and see what we can do to attract votes to us. So that'll be the focus of our campaign, is to try to appeal to as many voters in Lethbridge as possible. And if I'm successful, I will try to represent them all.
Anything else you would like to add? I pretty much went through all my questions.
Well, I'm really delighted to have the opportunity to run. I think I'd like to be a positive politician. I don't want to see the type of politics where people only represent and only speak to the people that voted for them. So we need to expand that, and we need to make sure that elected politicians speak for the whole constituency and represent that constituency when they go to Ottawa.